Hello students, it's Dr. Yu. We're now in the third segment of our speech writing series, where we'll focus on main points, the meat of the sandwich, if you will. Today, we're going to learn about the 5 components of each main point, and you'll also learn how to organize main points in a speech. To ensure that you have a clear message, you've learned the general structure of the sandwich method. The top bread is comprised of the introduction, which includes an attention grabber, tie-in, thesis, and preview. Once you have introduced your speech, you can then transition into your main points. The main points are the meat or vegetable patty of the sandwich. Without the main points, your speech is just bread. Often, you'll have 3 main points, although sometimes having 2 is acceptable if you're really short on time. In this video, I'll discuss 5 components each main point should have in your speech: a captivator, tie-in, main point thesis, support, and transition.
Sandwich.
The first component of each main point in your speech is the captivator. A captivator is an attention grabber that you use in the main points of the speech. The techniques are all the same. The distinction is in the timing. You want to use attention-grabbing devices throughout the entire speech, not just in the introduction. Boredom is a constant threat to your speech, and it never gets completely eliminated, only postponed. Think of boredom as something that is constantly creeping towards you like a punching bag. Each time you use a captivator, you push the bag away from you, but inevitably, it starts to creep back. You should have a captivator in every main point. Once you state your captivator, you must then ensure that each main point in your speech uses a tie-in to your main point thesis. Each of your main points should have a key takeaway or idea that supports the larger thesis of your speech, the intellectual goal or point B that you plan to move the audience to. For example, if you're going to do a speech about why you should start saving for retirement now as a college student, you might have 3 main points. First, how retirement works. Second, why timing is critical for a healthy retirement fund. And third, how you can start investing. Notice that each of these main points, or takeaways, all help my audience make the logical move from not investing at all to what it is, why it's important, and how to do it. Just like an introduction, you're going to want to state that main point thesis or idea clearly in each main point. If a main point doesn't have a central thesis or idea, then it shouldn't be considered a main point and should be merged with another main point that does. Once you have stated your main point thesis, you must then reinforce it with some kind of support. Support reinforces the main point through the use of either evidence, logic, or stories. Let me discuss each of these types. Evidence is simply the use of research, data, charts, facts, and other types of academic sources to support your main point. A key variable for the strength and reliability of evidence is its source. If you're going to use evidence, then there's going to be a proper way to cite sources in a speech. Every time you orally cite evidence, you should mention 3 things: who said it, through what medium, and when. For example, if you're citing a newspaper article, you would say, John Smith wrote in a New York Times article reported on January 13th, 2019, and then say what he wrote. If you're citing a book, you would say, Plato wrote in his famous work, The Republic, published in 360 BCE, that the heaviest penalty for declining to rule is to be ruled by someone inferior to yourself. So remember, whenever you cite a source in a speech, to say who said it, through what medium, and when. It's really important that you use evidence when making scientific claims. Scientific claims require scientific evidence. I had one student who did her informative speech on CBD oil. During her speech, she listed all of these health benefits that CBD purportedly provided. However, she never mentioned any studies or citations as she listed the benefits, so it was hard for me or anyone else to believe her claims. When you're making strong claims that are novel, impactful, or critical to the premises of your main points, you should always back them up with evidence. Orally cite that evidence accordingly. Logic is the use of logical syllogisms, analogies, metaphors, or any type of argumentation or reasoning device to support your main point. I highly recommend taking an argumentation class for learning how to construct sound logical arguments. But in the meantime, you can use an analogy to help make your point. Just like how I'm comparing a structure to a sandwich, you can compare an argument to an object or an idea in the world to make your point. Lastly, there is the use of stories. Stories can be long, or they can be anecdotal. Many people believe that good speeches always have some kind of story embedded in them. You can support a main point thesis or idea by illustrating it with a story. Since it's embedded in a main point, it should be in an appropriate and a proportionate length with the rest of the speech. So make sure to be mindful of your time. You can tell all kinds of stories: a historical story, news story, or personal story, a fictional story, or even an allegory. Now, once you've supported the main point, you'll then need to ensure that each main point will end with a transition to the next main point. A transition logically connects the previous main point to the next one. A transition allows a speech to logically flow so the audience can follow your train of thought. Now, there are two classes of transitions that might remind you of Taco Bell: hard transitions and soft transitions. Hard transitions are explicitly marked moments of transition in a speech. Hard transitions tend to make a speech sound like a list. Here is a common example. There are 3 reasons why you should adopt a dog. Number 1, they're cute. Dogs are just furry and warm and cuddly, and they're just so enjoyable to hold and look at. Number 2, they bring psychological benefits. Studies show that dogs help you relieve stress. Number 3, they teach you responsibility. Having to take care of someone beside yourself teaches you the importance of sacrifice and duty. Notice how the number 1, number 2, number 3 made the speech sound like a list? It structures the speech for sure, but it's filled with very hard transitions. Compare hard transitions to soft transitions, where the transitions are more implicitly marked. Taking the same content, here's how that speech would sound with soft transitions. Here is why you want to own a dog. They're cute. Dogs are so warm and furry and cuddly. Who doesn't want that? And in fact, because of their cuteness, they bring you psychological benefits. Studies show that they actually help you relieve stress. But not only will you be feeling better by being less stressed, you'll also become a better human being by learning responsibility. Dogs teach you to take care of someone besides yourself and the importance of being reliable. Notice how the 2 examples compare transition-wise? Like a rap track, you want your speech to flow. Transitions serve as the linchpins that weave main point ideas together. Now that we've discussed the 4 components that each main point in your speech should have, I want to spend a little time talking about how you should organize your main points. What also helps your main points flow is their organization, the order in which they appear. There are 5 types of main point sequences: spatial, chronological, causal, comparative, and categorical. First, you can order your main points spatially, where if you're doing a topic about a physical object, you could organize inside to out, outside to in, top to bottom, or bottom to top, to name a few. For example, if I'm doing a speech about the digestive system, I might order my main points from outside to in, starting with the mouth, the esophagus, and then the stomach. Or vice versa. I could do inside to out. I could start with the stomach, then the esophagus, and then the mouth. Second, you can order your main points chronologically, where if you're describing an event or history of something, you can start with the past, then go to the present, and then end with the future. Any history of some topic goes in this order, along with any story speech. Third, you can order causally, which focuses on causes to effects, or effects to causes. Maybe the first main point in a speech about economic recessions is about the causes of the recessions. The second point is the effects of the recessions. And the third point is the solution to recessions. The key is that your solutions focus on addressing the causes. Fourth, you can order comparatively. If you're doing a speech about the differences or similarities, advantages or disadvantages between two objects, then this order works really well. You can start with your main point 1 with the similarities between objects, main point 2 with the differences, and then main point 3 with the implications for the audience regarding the similarities or differences. Finally, if your main points do not fit any of the order that I've mentioned, then you can use categorical order. In categorical order, you identify 3 categories that each of your main points address. For example, if I'm doing a speech about myself, an introduction speech, I might do categorical order, where my 3 main points are my hobbies, career goals, and favorite foods. Now, I could have picked other categories to tell about myself, like childhood or family or others, but with categorical order, you choose the categories that you think will be most important to your audience. Notice that the 3 categories that I did choose don't relate to each other naturally, so I'll need to make sure to use good transitions between each. Overall, each of your main points are structured like a Russian matryoshka doll. Each main point is a speech within a speech, with an attention grabber, tie-in, thesis, support, and transition. Just like how your introduction is an attention getter, tie-in, thesis, and preview. All 3 of your main points will have this same structure. And the glue between your main points, the transitions, can be aided by a logical main point ordering that I just discussed. Now, there may be times when you may only have 1 or 2 minutes to speak. In such a short amount of time, it may be difficult to use all parts of the sandwich. In those cases, it's okay to cut something out. Maybe you'll cut out an introduction and just have the main points in conclusion. An open-faced sandwich, if you will. Or maybe you'll just have one big main point with an introduction and a conclusion. For the speeches that you'll do in my class, you'll be expected to do a 5-piece sandwich that includes an introduction, 3 main points, and a conclusion. In short speaking situations, you'll know what you need to adjust to ensure you stay within time limits. We've now discussed the meaty part of your sandwich, the main points. We learned that every main point should have 5 parts: captivator, tie-in, thesis, support, and transition. Moreover, you should take some time to think about how to organize your main points in a speech. You will repeat this structure through each main point until you get to the conclusion. We will discuss what you do in the conclusion in the final segment of this video series.